have last but not least,
I
Mr.
guess
Cool.
it's my time to shine.
Yeah, man.
Um, I'll call myself the underdog here.
Aye,
I
aye, aye.
think my career in the auto industry here in St. Lucia has been very understated because you
Okay.
know most people know of my vehicles. They don't know that they're mine. A lot of
They don't
people
know you.
don't know. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
They don't know me. So
Okay.
I will have to start from the beginning. Actually just before this live, I was looking at Lucian Tuner's post and I saw Anthony Dole's ST185. So you'd have seen a post of the red Celica with gold rims. So that was
Yes, yes.
actually my first car. Funny story behind that first car. I was not definitely not interested in motorsport, not looking for anything fast. I was literally scrolling through Facebook and just saw the post. That was it. I messaged Dole, told him, well, I wanted to come and see it. I think it was like a Friday. So we had to arrange something for the weekend. I went down on the weekend to Denry, had a look at it. I was like, that's a lot of work. Like the guy just said there, I wasn't a mechanic to do all that stuff just yet. So I figured that might have been too much. And then by the Monday, which followed, I called him up. I said, you know what, Dole, I'll take it. He brought it up for me with literally a broken CV joint. So he had to drive it up with the broken right CV joint. So the wheel is literally just, and that would have been my first car. So from there, that is when I got into the whole aspect of, well, all-wheel drive, first of all, the Celica brand and all of that. And it actually evolved from there. So again, years later, I'm in a WhatsApp group with a number of other enthusiasts, and the shell comes up for sale for an ST205, which is the newer model of the 185. And
Yes, yes.
same thing, jumped on that, got the shell, did a swap, and that would be my second car. And from there, I bought a Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 4 for my buddy Don, so you would know Don as well.
Yeah,
People
man.
in the group would know Don as well. And last but not least, I, with a sense of goodwill, had to go back to the Celica and got the second ST205, which is what I currently drive. Most people would have seen it. In fact, I was actually featured in a road blog group at one point.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. Just in traffic as normal. And it would be the white Celica, black and white Celica, known as the Panda, with
Yeah.
the red mud. Yeah. So that's what I currently drive. My Evo 4 is in the shop. And that's it. I no longer have the 185. I would love to, to get it back and restore it, but that's for another show. But most of my career, if you want to call it that, has been all-wheel drive, rally cars, turbochargers, well, something I want to talk about when we get into the discussion. And that's pretty much me. Low-key guy, but well-known cars.
All right, so we have three different distinct personalities on the live today, guys. So Kern, Davidson, and Cody. And that was the introduction there. So also, guys, just a reminder, the live is also going on in the Lucian Tuna Facebook group right now. So if you're on Facebook, you can also look at the live right there. And you can join the group as well. So, okay. So, guys, thanks for the introduction. Everybody is now seated comfortably and they're looking at the live. So now, we're going to go into the discussion. All right. So, we're going to start with driving conditions. Kun, we're going to start with you.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we're going to start with you. So, when it comes to driving a rear-wheel drive car on a daily basis in the dry, how well does it go for you? And from driving it like an ordinary to driving it like when you're ready to just give it your all.
As we term it, driving spiritedly.
Yes.
In the drive first, right? We're talking about the drive.
Yeah, in the drive. Because the other side, that is when the stories, the horror stories just come. But
right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so my rear-wheel drive driving experience started back in 2012, I think, with the S13. And that was my first rear-wheel drive car. It was bone stock engine-wise. I had a boost controller. It had a super AFC back then, no standalone thing. Back then, you tune your little thing. And it had a two-way diff. So from then on, already you heard horror stories about two-way diffs and boy, if you don't know what you're doing, it'll throw you down. All of that. So initially I was cautious as hell with the car. I mean, my driving experience prior to that was two front-wheel drive cars, which I believe until a day like today, I probably drove the hardest. Like out of my cars now, I was more confident back then. So you know, front-wheel drive, you're not worried about spinning out. Yeah, understand these things. So I used to drive those cars pretty hard. Adapting that to rear-wheel drive, two-way diff, yeah, you have to change how you approach things, because corner entry, corner exit, where you apply throttle through corners, all these things come into play, whether it's wet or dry. So it was a learning curve. I'm still learning as you go along and you add power or the different chassis and whatnot. But it's not that bad, because realistically, if you can fine-tune suspension and stuff, right? You have good tires. A rear-wheel drive car can handle immaculately, you know.
Okay.
I mean, look at an S2000 and an RX-7 from factory.
Yes,
those are like two of the best handling cars ever. Apart from, you know, Davidson, you know, Integra Type R, Civic Type R, these kind of things.
Yeah,
so it really comes up to chassis setup to say you can drive these cars, because look at the number of rear-wheel drive non-sports cars that we see in accidents on our roads. And we know what I'm referring to, the Mark X's. Sorry for anyone that won't do one, but we know we're talking about cars like that, right? So things like the diffs play a role. So two-way diff, 1.5, open diff, normal LSD, all these things play a role. So for me, driving my rear-wheel drive cars has not been that twitchy, that scary, because two of them have had two-way diffs. One is factory LSD. I never have to worry about one tire doing something I don't know what it's going to do. I think that is what really is my saving point. The fact that I didn't come from an open diff rear-wheel drive car, so I know the characteristics of how a two-way diff should behave and does behave, to know what I'm doing, throttle inputs and that kind of thing. So driving these cars in the dry, yeah, it's pretty fun when you take your time to understand the dynamics. Yeah.
So because I'm thinking like maybe in the dry it would be easier to drive a rear-wheel drive car, go all out, but turns out you don't even think.
Yeah, like you don't just floor the car and say, okay, we good to go because it's dry. You know, you really have to remember your car, the characteristics, how it behaves. Because I've read things about cars, but I've never experienced them for myself. Now, owning the Skyline, owning the Sylvia, I can see what internet forums were talking about in terms of how the cars feel when you drive them. The Skyline is much heavier, right? It feels more planted. So when taking corners, the car feels like, and both have the coilovers there, so none of them on the factory suspension. So the Skyline feels firm, planted, and you can feel the weight of the car. So if it ever has to step out, it's like momentum based, like it's a heavy, slow slide that you can interpret, hey, this is what's happening, and you can correct here and there. The Sylvia, on the other hand, from both the S15 and the S14, the rear of these cars are super light and twitchy. So you get more snap oversteer with these cars that you have to mentally prepare for. So jumping from one to the next is not just a matter of driving the exact same way. There are differences you have to take into consideration in those cars. And I can say that from actual experience of driving the two.
Yep. And now in terms of the wet now, which is the scary part.
Yeah, I think out of the three of us here, I have it the quote-unquote scariest to drive, because I don't know, Davidson, wet front-wheel drive, what? Hydroplane, a little understeer. Cody can be bossing that day.
I'm a very cautious driver, so I don't take unnecessary risk. Like I heard too much ghost stories of wet road. So the most I will do is probably burnout in it. And even with the LSD, when the car was one tire fire, I could do a full 45 burnout and control the car easy. But now with the LSD, oh Lord, I have to have both hands planted because when I start to go left or I start to go right, you have to stay it and hold it in place, or else you go in somebody or you go in the bush.
It's funny that you mentioned that because, you know, in between my car history, there was a time that I drove Kim, well at the time Kim's 300 ZX, previously leased, some of us who know that vehicle. And again, me having no experience with rear-wheel drive, you know, I'm downshifting like, you know, it's my car. And the car caught a slide from a down. It was the first time I ever experienced that. I was in shock. You understand? So, so you're so right when you mentioned that it has so much to do with the car itself, and I guess just, you know, a 5-second experience.
Because my first experience for true was even before I owned any of my cars, any period. Back then Lee had the 4-door R32, the blue one, RB25 swapped. I think the diff was welded, and we were in the JQ parking lot as usual. And he lives Marshall, I live Waterworks, so you know, I would go down with him. So when we were there, that was actually supposed to be the first car I ever bought, but it just didn't happen. So he let me drive down, and we were coming down the John Compton Highway, and he was like, drive the car. So, you know, I was driving the car. So when we got to by just before Jamari, I didn't slow down, like gradually come off the accelerator. I literally just moved my foot off the gas, and the back end of the car just did a little dance. And he was like, yeah, that's what's going to happen because, you know, the welded diff acts like a two-way. So both tires did their thing upon rapid decel. As soon as I moved my foot, that just said, hey, what you doing? And it just gave me that little dance. And from then I realized, yeah, that's not something to play with.
I had a worse experience because before I was driving my Civic, I had one of those super carry vans, the one after that, as a company van, the 2-door. Right? And I was coming down the highway, and I was getting down third. When I hit second, boy, the back locked up here, and I ended up the other way. Complete 180. Either way, I just thank God nothing was coming down, so I just continued going up. Like nothing happened. So, yeah. And then they had the old school super carries, boy. These were tail happy, like, what? I heard so much ghost stories about them. I got to drive one. I drove that like about in second gear when the road was wet because I was so afraid that would spin with me. So I just...
Well, I don't know. I mean, as an all-wheel drive guy on the platform, I want to see at this point to everyone, because everyone has this, or most people have this misconception. That all-wheel drive is just the ultimate thing. So I like how you separate between dry and wet. So I'll start with the dry. And, you know, the truth is from experience, and I say experience in the sense that a lot of people own cars and they own certain things, but they don't use them daily. There's quite a difference between daily in a vehicle and then driving a vehicle once in a while.
Right.
Daily means you go to the supermarket, you go to the gas station, you have to parallel park, you have to, you know, even do some illegal stuff, park on a yellow line for 5 seconds and, you know, get out. So you daily in the vehicle. And from daily in it, for the most part, an all-wheel drive, it's like dummy. You literally can press as much as you want and never have to worry about it. And in fact, I tell people this current S5, which I've been driving for the past 6 months or so, but I finished that presentation about March. It is yet to set. I have literally never lost confidence or control, and I think confidence very important in that car while driving. But I remember back when I had the first ST05, the red one. I was coming from Jackman one evening, and you know this big corner right next to where there was supposed to be this Peugeot dealership, I think it was. So in that big corner right there, you know, I'm heading up to Cash Street, and I literally I didn't even see the corner. So at the point I noticed this, I'm just yanking the steering and praying that I actually make it, and the car literally held all the way through the corner. So, you know, again, dummy proof. You can be in the worst of situations and it will still keep track. However, with my Evo 4, and this is again coming back to what Kun was saying about knowing the vehicle, I went into it thinking the same. I drove a ST205 four-wheel drive, basically a 50-50 split. I'm heading into the Evo, similar platform. These vehicles went head to head in the WRC. But the Evo has this slight thing about it. And I believe it has a lot to do with the EYC. So some people may or may not know. But active yaw control, the most brilliant and at the same time most dangerous advancement to the Mitsubishi Lancer cars. So this basically adjusts your torque split based on an angle it senses from your steering. Now, clearly, you're taking a physical, attribute, a steering angle, a degree, and then you're using that to vary power. So exactly what Chris was saying, I would like to know what my car is doing when it's doing it. And that's not exactly the case with the EYC. So on 2 occasions, once when I was heading up the Mont by the Latop Road, stepped out there, and this is dry road. This is not a drop of water on me. This is just me, probably just before Sandal, accelerating as I was probably in second at the time, even a bit too much gas, and staring at the very same time, the EYC kicks in and kicks it out a little bit. So I had to take back control. Coming down from Barbono, that similar thing happened. I guess probably just before you get to the flat and you reach by the primary school there, there's these big windy corners. So there, it was in wet conditions, the same thing happened. Me expecting the amount of throttle I'm giving to, translate to this much cornering and going around the corner, and it overcompensates and spins me off, almost, put me into the fall. So quite a difference. With again, another four-wheel drive car, you see where an additional system here now, changes the entire mix. So it's not even a case where you can just respond by saying all-wheel drives, or even the four-wheel drive versus all-wheel drive debate. So, Kun is exactly right. Regardless of what kind of vehicle it is, there will be its limitations, and what's important is for you to understand.
Because Danny did comment that and say different all-wheel drive systems, because all the companies have something different.
Yeah.
Like you said, you have AYC with your Subaru has the symmetrical all-wheel drive, Nissan has the Atessa system. Like, there's just so many things, and you have to adapt.
And that's what I was talking about experience at the beginning, because again, you can own a car, but like dealing it, you really get to understand these things. And again, I didn't even plan for it to be this way. Like I said at the beginning, I was not specifically into rally cars, not even turbocharged cars for that matter. But these are the cards that have been dealt. But just having the honor, the pleasure of owning 2 different ones from the same era helps you realize exactly that even though they had to meet these regulations or these standards, everybody put in their own secret sauce, and you only get to taste the sauce if you actually own these vehicles.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So to always think about all-wheel drive being the god of the wet, I have an all-wheel drive car.
What it is.
Yeah, I can just press that and I good man. Jesus take the wheel.
I was coming from with the 185. I was actually being chased up. Spirited driving. So I was being chased up by Jason. Most people know him for Cinco with the Evo 7 GT at the time. And we get to Bexor just by what's the name of that place? That corner where there's always an accident.
By Like It?
By Like It, that's right. And they're meeting the guy's gate. So yeah, I get there, and again, it's wet, it's raining. I swing the corner, and I just feel the car doing more swinging than I planned for it to swing. And like you said, Kun, it was a more gradual drift and not very, very sudden, obviously.
Right.
But I could feel it drifting into the oncoming lane. But I don't know, for that experience, I didn't have much experience at that time. I probably had the vehicle for me about 6 months or so. I just let off the throttle a little bit. It caught itself, and then I continued on. But from then, I realized, it's not invincible in the wet. There's no such thing as an invincible vehicle, apparently, in the wet, even though it's all wet. But it's interesting, though. I'd love to, because I haven't gotten a chance to really put the 205, my current 205, which I think is my best setup so far, in terms of the Selgers, to put that one through pieces. I've done a lot more technical tuning, I would say. As opposed to just owning coilovers and adjusting your ride height and dampening at that time back then, with everything else I know now, I'm looking at weights and how things are responding, and so I've made some adjustments there, some more intelligent adjustments, obviously.
Okay.
And I would like to see it put through its pieces. So I'm looking forward to our next event, whenever that is, to see
Yeah,
what
me too.
see what it's gonna do. But I feel like it's my best setup so far, and to date, never lost confidence in it. I can literally enter any corner knowing exactly what to expect.
Right. Good stuff.
Oh, great. David, I don't know if you want to give an extra something on that for your side of the game, front wheel drive.
Well, me, I'm currently trying to work on the suspension. I'm probably gonna go coilovers because I have stock shocks with coilover sleeves for years. Since when I got the car, first 6 months, coilover sleeves on the car already. So I'm thinking of going coilovers because for the power, I think the car is too sluggish. So I want to upgrade to coilovers. Probably looking at a standalone ECU. I'm actually looking at getting probably a power FC, Apexy power FC. Right, it costs about $500 US, probably just to retune the car, because I have B16 pistons in the car, so the compression is a little higher. So I'm getting probably a little back pressure. That's why I think I'm maybe smoking, because I recently changed the rings. So I just looking to upgrade, because basically the car is it's a 1800. Well, not 1800. It's a mix and match. B20 crank in a 18 block. B20 connecting rods, B16 pistons, compression high, type power valve, springs, and all that stuff. So I think I maybe have a slight back pressure.
Yeah.
So I just trying to fine tune like everybody else, fine tune everything, fine tune the suspension. So.
But I have a question though, because again, like I said, most of my histories with all-wheel drive, but I don't know. I've driven a Colt. The Colt is front-wheel drive, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And I don't know. I don't. Maybe it's the lack of that confidence. I don't feel confident driving a front-wheel drive turbocharged car. As Ken was saying, I feel very well planted. For example, in the 300ZX, I've driven a Mark X as well, and a few other vehicles. But I don't feel confident enough to push a front-wheel drive vehicle. And I've heard, like Ken mentioned too, regarding the Hondas, the Integra and the Civic. I love to drive them. Yeah. But I don't know how I'll be able to get in there and confidently give it all it's got. It just doesn't feel normal.
I guess it's because you come from predominantly driving the all-wheel drive. Because if you started with a front-wheel drive proper, you would totally understand.
And
I think it's because you come from.
I haven't had a proper sports front-wheel drive. So my front-wheel drive experience, like, I had a Skettle, the Toyota Corolla, most people know. At one point, I had a Tita as well. So these are, and of course, most of the cars that I drove from my last job. So that is my front-wheel drive experience. I've never driven a properly set up, I would say, front-wheel car. So maybe most of my concerns and the looseness might be because of that.
Yeah, you have to. What I find is that, well, in the forums, once you start to up the power, let's say 180 wheel horsepower, and you're going up there, you have to start to strengthen that front strut bars, traction control. Not traction control. You have to put a traction bar, right, to support the framing of the vehicle. So even with my vehicle, I feel the same way too. I feel that the front is very sluggish with the power it has. So I get that feeling. So I won't push my vehicle past a certain point because I know I don't feel confident. So you just have to work on the suspension on it, the rigidity of the frame and everything. Because when the fellas go K20, the fellas have to put a stabilizing bar in front of that, because that the wheel hop you get it. Even sometimes when I burn out, I get in wheel hop. The tire bouncing up and down and the dashboard and everything shaking. So it's a very scary feeling. You feel like you might break up something, you might break a mount or something. So I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. Now, someone just mentioned I started in the chat, and that's one thing I have driven that kind of felt a little bit better. So I drove one of those. I'm not too familiar with them, but front-wheel drive turbocharged Starlet that a guy at Pizza and Company used to own, and that felt good. That felt really, really solid. What engine did it come with? 1.8, I didn't know 50,000.
1500 turbocharged Starlets.
Yeah, that's probably what it was like. So I guess you're right. At that power level, and in that chassis, it felt
Yeah, it's a little fun, small, compact car, so you won't feel right. You won't feel the code has a little slight more power, so it'll be a little scarier feeling.
No, I was feeling like the steering rack was not
maybe
not with me. I'm moving
left.
Like
electronic steering rack.
A little bit more left than I wanted to move left.
it has no diff, nothing so?
The Colt?
Yeah. I wonder, it has a diff?
I'm not too sure. Like I said, that's the thing.
I'm not sure if those really have to come with an LSD. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think they actually
that could be another factor too, eh? Because the one tire fire will pull you to the right or to the left.
Yeah, is a real thing.
Yeah.
Maybe if you put a deep in it, it might be a different feeling.
I guess we all have experience with this though. You can't talk about the whole all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive and front-wheel drive aspect without mentioning the concept of turbos, and this is what I wanted to say. In terms of my experience, I've driven turbocharged vehicles most of the time. Like I just mentioned, I haven't driven a proper front-wheel drive, but I have a rear-wheel drive. And I don't know, I find it's in driving an all-wheel drive vehicle, because you have less limitations, if you want to call it that, you don't have to modulate throttle and, be very careful. You can literally just floorboard all the time. And rightfully so, because these cars are like 2-liter turbocharged cars. They make good power right up there in the mid-range and going high up. They're very talky at the beginning, obviously. But for you to, especially going uphill in our country, you need to kind of stay in the rev. So you find most times you're in second. If you go to third too soon, you don't have enough power, so you want to go back to second. That's where you basically live. But a non-turbocharged car, obviously, it's quite different. The power band is different, obviously, and that will have an effect or come into play when we're talking traction. Right. So I guess from you, what is it like from that aspect, from the whole power band throttle modulation aspect of driving rear-wheel drive? We spoke about going down and downshifting.
Yeah, right.
How about going
for me,
in that direction? Going up now, how do you keep it up? Keep power going, but not stepping out and that kind of thing.
Well, like you rightfully said, though, for you, is like proper gear selection. It's important to know what you're doing. So you drive, we drive our roads enough, I would say. Like you said, daily driving these cars gives you a different approach to driving it on a weekend alone, because we do everything with the car. So at times you find, you go into Viewport maybe often with that car. So you learn, you're going up and down, so you know the corners, this, by now, if you're in third gear here, approaching here, you have to probably back down to second, keep the throttle through that corner, don't just put it into third because you'll lose this, the power band will drop. Now, should I say, fortunately, two of the cars that are rear-wheel drive, both of them were bone stock SR20s. So just like your case, KD, probably the Evo, my power band was like nice and wide, small turbo, stock engine. I had power from low all the way until it started tapering off high at redline. So I didn't have to worry about maybe taking a corner, watching RPMs to know, hey, full boost on this turbo kicks in here. So I have to remember not to just press, because I'm accelerating for a corner nicely, and then boost is gonna kick in, and I have to be prepared with my hands to make sure when it does what it does.
The turbo will just kick in at the wrong time. That's what everyone is about.
So that goes back to knowing what you're driving, because that's why you will not find, somebody shouldn't just say, like you and me, we have our cars in stock trim, and somebody has a properly modified version of our cars, and they say, drive the car, take it for a drive. We cannot adapt the same driving to said car. I cannot drive my car hard at an event, like an autocross, and then Elijah comes and says, well, try to drive my car. I cannot drive Elijah's car the same way I'll drive my car through that autocross, because of his turbo size, his tuning, his power delivery. It's a whole different thing. So you have to take all of that into consideration. I cannot drive the Skyline the same way I'm going to drive the Sylvia. The Skyline, the BorgWarner turbo on that kicks in quote unquote early, but boost starts making higher in the revs compared to the standard Sylvia. This is a little T25 turbo. This thing boosts. By the time I press the gas and come off, you hear the blower valve instantly. So, like Cody is saying, you have to know these things. You have to adapt. You have to be ready to react. Because, truth be told, even Cody driving all-wheel drive, he's taking a corner, proper flop, a patch of water, a patch of gravel can catch him off guard, you know. Not because he's all-wheel drive means he will pass through that gravel the same way. The car will still react to a whole patch of gravel, and he would have to catch a slide and probably correct it and do what he has to do. So you have to take all that into consideration. And power band, power delivery, all of these things are important when you're cornering with any of these cars. Any drivetrain. Very important.
Now, we mentioned Mark X earlier, and I've been driving one recently. Shout out to the Mark X crew. Shout out to the Mark X crew. But the interesting thing is, I mean, you live close to my home, so you know. Coming up from La Prairie to come to La Panse, you know, I drive my cars up there like with no issue. I never even have to slow down, even if as bumpy as the road is. But I find with the Mark X, if you gun it, you're just gonna, you know, get tire spin and you're struggling to go up. And funny enough, if you literally just take it easy, really calm, the car just drives up with literally zero speed. Zero, not even a little bit. So I don't know. And
which Mark X is that? Is it the 2.5 or 3.5?
That's a 2.5.
Okay, that's the Fallis, right? Fallis.
Yeah, exactly, and that's 2500 cc too.
Exactly, so you can imagine if it was a 3.5.
Yeah, that's why I was doing the whole sort of modulation. Like somehow, I guess the vehicle is designed, it's set up with its differential and whatnot. It knows, or at least can handle putting the power down to get you up that hill if you just let it. So you ease into it, you know?
Right.
As opposed to what you hear about them, you know, just literally being tail happy and like, no control. That's what I went in thinking, that, you know, I'm really going to have to look out for this car, you know, going around these corners. But I find if you let the, I guess, trust the electronics, you want to call it, trust the science kind of thing.
In your case, that's the thing you'd have to do, because, boy, to drive AYC, a car with AYC, you have to trust. I think that's my issue. Like, I have to 100% put my faith in this AYC system and know I'm going to point my car here, it's going to go here. And that's what AYC does. Your mind is telling you, yeah, come off the gas, turn this way. But AYC is telling you, don't worry, I have you. Point it that way, we go in that way. I don't think I can wrap my mind around trusting the car that much. That's why I think I'm afraid of driving like an Evo at the limit.
That sounds like Dreamliner software out there.
No, but you know what's weird? I guess probably by the third or fourth time it happened, I got to a point where I was making a kick out on my own. So, you know, I went down to Debawa once, and coming back up, they were a little slippery. You can start to calibrate yourself, if you want to call it that, so you know how much it's going to compensate. And then once you've calibrated yourself, now you know how little or more you need to corner to input to get it to do what you want it to do. And when you learn it that way, then it's no longer this scary thing that can just chip out on you.
It goes back to knowing your car and learning your car.
Knowing your car for sure.
Yep. So now, as you guys are speaking on that topic, the all-wheel drive, and when Ken was talking about the AYC on the Evos, I'm thinking of the in the 90s with the Tesla ETS, when the Nissan Skyline GTR could have actually turned with all four tires because of the super high cast. So in terms of that now, would you trust me?
Ken was talking about trust a while ago. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's why they delete the high cast.
This one feels a little less natural to me. I don't know.
A lot of people delete the high cast.
A lot of people delete the high cast.
Yeah, because
I don't know.
You're working with high cast, you're working with Tesla ETS, you're working with all kind of different systems, and you're driving and steering at the limit. Everybody's driving style is different. There are people that will probably adapt to that. There are some people that will tell you they want to control what is going on. They will delete this four-wheel steering and be in control. I mean, you have guys deleting ABS for all kinds of reasons. So, I mean, what's high cast? Of course, I see that as something them will delete. Easily.
I had no choice to take on my ABS. So the brake upgrade I did didn't have the ABS solution to it. So I had to take out my ABS. But it feels the same way.
Yeah, until you
My
have
car
to
power band is different. My car power band is different to yours. Like a couple weeks ago, I took the car around the island for the first time. And I literally drove from Castries to Viewfort in under 5,000 RPM.
Okay.
So the car has good power. You know, I don't need to go into VTEC only by overtaking or anything. So it has good power already. So and I drove a 1600 because we have a 1600. The white EK. Right EK color that belongs to Old Man. It belongs to South. So we have it and the car's all right. The VTEC is on it. It's a little slow, lame. But when you go to the 1800, the VTEC comes on a little harder. So So yeah. But for me to burn rubbers, I have to be in VTEC. It smokes better in VTEC.
I just asked Kun about again the whole turbo situation with a rear-wheel drive, but how does VTEC play out in a front-wheel drive setup? I guess specifically for Honda, because you know other manufacturers have similar setups in the Mavic.
Right. So like hard cornering in a corner and VTEC comes on.
No, if you hit VTEC in a corner, it catch you off guard. It will send you off if you're not controlling, if you're not steering it. Like just like burning off in VTEC. But sometimes with the diff, without the diff, when I used to burn rubbers, right, and I drop it in second, you will get a mild launch. But now with the diff, when you burn it and you drop it in second, it kicks off. It shoots forward. Okay. So you have to be careful. So if VTEC catch you at the wrong time, you will end up in a bush or in a car.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting.
KYC boy.
All right.
All of us have all of us have something to deal with.
That's a very interesting topic, I must say. And now, okay, so let's look at the maintenance and servicing of these drivetrains, because yeah, man, and also mention the tires, because now, Kun, I know you are man. Kun, I guess the only that might what is it?
Tires are important regardless. Slow car, fast car, any drivetrain. Tires.
No, because I don't just get a little.
The tire wear wise, everyone thinks okay, you rear wheel drive, so your rear tires finish first. You front wheel drive, your front tires finish first. And four wheel drive, also my tires finish first. That's
equal.
But again, no, it's actually not, because a lot of the cornering is happening. I still have to battle with my camber setup and trying to get my tires seat evenly, regardless. But I do find my front do wear a lot quicker than the rear.
Okay.
Because remember, the Evos are more front wheel drive bias than
rear wheel drive.
Yeah. So you'll find that, I guess.
Yeah, so sure. You said maintenance stock now.
But you said maintenance though.
Yeah, so maintenance in terms of like how can I put it? So let's just say, for example, Kun has this rear-wheel drive car. When it comes to like keeping it well performed, because with the rear-wheel drive cars, you have your LSD, your differential, you have your rear tires, because all your power goes down to the rear.
Right. I think out of all three of us, of course, Cody has it the worst. Yes. I have it next. Davidson, I think, has it the easiest because he has less parts to worry about. I have a drive shaft and all kind of things going to the back to worry about. Yeah, Davidson can have an LSD, but he doesn't have a drive shaft to worry about.
Right. The most problem that we'll probably get, the most problem that we'll probably get with the Hondas is that we mash up the bearings in the inner cup. I think you're not a Honda man until you break them bearings in the inner cup. I think one time I used to burn rubber so much that the bearings died. I killed the bearing, literally mashed up the bearings in it. When I took it out, it was just the metal piece I was holding it in place.
Okay.
So you press gas and you get like a delay, like a sleeping clutch when you're moving out. So I think that's the most, all of them have drivetrain, bearings and all that stuff there.
Could he have sent a diff transfer case? Tooth bag I to worry about.
Tell me, you only have a LSD in the back, right? Or in the front? Which one is on the GT4 versus the Evo 4?
The Evo 4
Well, let's give us the whole rundown. Give us the whole rundown.
Yeah, no, again, no, this is another area that I don't have all the specs on. Because my experience is more of the
One of your
GT4.
discs,
I know that because of the 50-50.
right? One of the discs on the Evo supposed to be open. I think it's the Is the front?
I think it's the front. I think it's right LSD. I think it's
right.
to switch the power or something to transfer the power.
Yeah.
Okay.
But because the GT4 is quote unquote this full-time 50-50 split, you have them both.
Okay.
Yeah, because again, funny enough, I always have a story, but I went to the beach once, and again thinking I'm invincible, I can drive out of sand, you know, and I literally got stuck in the sand. Because even though all four wheels are trying all four wheels are turning, they cannot figure out how to turn together in the right way to get me out of the sand, you know.
Wow.
So
yeah, you can stick it with and you can stick it in different wheel drive too.
Drive doesn't make you invincible for sure.
Yeah, so regular maintenance, Gideon, of these cars is like any other, but some of us just have extra parts to maintain and check after.
Okay, so guys, in terms of, so solution again, so if you have a all-wheel drive vehicle, consider. So consider before you buy all-wheel drive, we can say.
I guess I can give some advice here as well, though, because, you know, when it comes to people...
Before you down on the Evos and the Imprezas and, you know, them type of all-wheel drive vehicles.
Yeah, and it's good that you mentioned that, especially the Subaru people. Things like your diff oil, transfer case oil, a lot of people don't consider them in a service. They just do the engine oil and the filter.
Regular engine oil, yeah.
Exactly. So trust me, those fluids are very important, especially because just fluid on a whole, it changes over time. Whether it's in use, heavy use, light use, not in use at all, the fluid itself changes over time. It's chemical. So I would say reference the service manual and get these fluids changed because you may look at long term and of course that the part can fail, so your diff can fail or whatever it is, but even short term in terms of how it responds and how it drives, all of this is affected by exactly that. This is a more direct relationship where you have more fluid in there. The diff itself is going to be reacting differently than one that is maintained and has a fluid. So all these things come into play, and it's what makes having an all-wheel drive vehicle a little more complicated, or not maybe complicated, but more involved. That would be a better way. It's a much more involved.
I mean, it's like you said, knowing what you have is the same way as owning a rotary. You know the characteristics are different from a piston engine, so you know how to service what goes bad faster, what goes bad first. It's the same, you know, the same concept. Know your vehicle, know what it takes. Like Cody said, fluid is extremely important. Wear and tear of these parts happen because us Skyline guys, we've had issues. Us Nissan guys have had issues with our factory limited slip differentials starting to behave like open diffs because stuff wears out and it just doesn't grip the same way anymore. Then you have to, you have to reshim them. Basically reshim them.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, also LSD is viscous.
Viscous. So we have our fluids going there, and because imagine, I believe I had that issue with the Skyline. It was starting to happen. It wasn't. I know ZV had that issue with the R33.
Yeah,
there were instances where 2 tires lit up. Yeah, and then after a while, 1 tire, then it would have to catch itself to come on. Mine started doing that on occasion. So what I did, I ordered Nismo has a shim kit for these cars, where it actually gives you like a ton of plates and shims, where you can actually characterize the the characteristics of the stock diff to make it act like 1.5 or 2-way. So I have a kit. I am just going to stuff all the plates in there and make it act like a 2-way because I know how a 2-way behaves now. I've had 2 cars with a 2-way, so I know how it behaves. So I'm giving it everything.
There you go.
That's interesting. I see somebody down in the comments asks, I need an LSD diff for my IS200. Any of you guys themselves can help a man out?
He could JB well lit.
Definitely don't do that.
Yeah, so Kenny Genius, so one suggestion is you should just oil your diff
Boy,
But I
you
guess
have to
they
check.
should have.
You can get an Alteza LSD. I mean, I don't know where exactly. Check the used parts place. Check the Alteza owners, because many a times that diff has failed some guys because of their behavior with their cars and adding power here and there. So a lot of them have had to change. I know Chaser boys sometimes have had to put Alteza diffs under their cars because it went boom.
Wow. Let's see. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there's another thing I came across recently with the guys from Gas and Gasoline. I can't remember. What's his name? That have the yellow RX-7. I feel
And his
for
RX-7, his diff shattered.
And then the question I want to know is, okay, how can we avoid these types of things happening? Is it because the car was that old, or
Because remember, remember his is a what, a 93, I think he said, 93, 95, whichever. And he wouldn't, I don't think he knows the service history of that car in that sense. So he wouldn't know if fluid was changed regularly. I mean, they did the across country, all 50 states road trip thing, right? But he didn't really beat on the car. They were just doing a road trip to see how reliable the cars were. And look what happened. He did donuts, heated up everything. And then the second time, as soon as he literally just launched the car and grenaded.
Yeah.
He probably ran with that oil.
Yeah,
It probably lost oil because I follow somebody. Right, I remember this fella named Josh. I follow on YouTube. When he just put his K24 in his Integra, he went on the dyno. I think he didn't put the oil bung back in, so he went to the dyno and ran the car without no oil. And then when he came from the dyno, typical person want to launch his car. So my boy launched his car. When he launched it, boy, gear seized. When he checked, the whole side of the gear came out.
Wow.
Well, damn.
So,
wow.
And I had a little experience running my gearbox without oil because my one of my seals were bad, and I was green. I didn't know about it, and it damaged the input shaft. And then the input shaft got so bad when I took out the input shaft to replace it in January, I couldn't find no bearings.
Wow.
Yeah, I think
The bearings is already matched up inside it.
I tell you see, and Davidson still has less issues to deal with than Cody and myself.
Yeah,
I have a drive shaft. I remember my universal joint in my drive shaft went by, and right now the Skyline has a single piece drive shaft all the way. It's no connecting here in the middle. It's a full single piece drive shaft because the more parts you have, the more parts there are to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About to say the more problems you have.
Look at that story for me. I did the 5-lug conversion on my car, and I realized that when I got the 5-lug conversion from the person had two different knuckles in front, one bigger, one smaller. So I had to do a modification on the right side. So I got a CRV knuckle like the left. I ordered a 2001 CRV 5-lug hub, and I had to get the hub machined to fit the bearing. Because what happened was my right side had a camber with the old knuckle that the fella gave me. I was eating my tire, so I had to do it to straighten it up.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Could you say?
Yeah, with the more parts you have is one thing, but the more moving parts mean, more joints, more mounts, more bushings, and even that too, is a different spin on maintenance. Because then now some things are just not available anymore, and whatever the construction of the rubber that was used in factory, again, that's what was tested. You don't get that. You get polyurethane and other types of materials, all and cascades, all these things. I'm actually very concerned that I may get to a point where I will have to drive my car less to preserve. And I don't want to get to that. I love driving my car. I don't have 2 types of cars to drive. So I love driving my car. But I'm worried about getting to that point.
Yeah, because everything, all mounts and bushings are now polyurethane, everything to cause more vibration, stiffness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think
that's why when me I drive in the Tita so much, I'm like, yeah, because when my car was down and I was driving the Tida, I realized how comfortable this car is. And I put the Sylvia back up and I'm driving this and I'm like, what the hell?
Why would you want to do yourself that? Exactly.
Couldn't get a change.
No. I mean, you can make the car comfortable. You can make it comfortable to a degree.
Okay.
I mean, aftermarket rollovers, regardless of whatever spring rate I choose, that car will always be stiffer in ride than the Tida.
Yeah, the conventional shocks, yeah.
Wow. You know?
Wow.
The sounds, the vibrations, the smells.
Right, and there's some roads down here. There's some roads down here that will just do some serious injustice to you, especially when you pass through tunnel road.
Back problems. Yeah, stay away.
Now, speaking of road, now as you say that there, I wanted to give you a question on the roads, but before we get to that, the Evos now, Cody. You say you in, I guess. The transfer case issue with the Evos. Because either it's like the Evo cam would give you Subaru, will tell you Subaru, your man is bearing up, and them type of thing, bearing no jokes, but the Subaru cam will give the Evo jokes as, yeah, your fellow transfer case are good.
Yeah, don't launch the Evos with Bridgestone potenzas.
Wow.
You broke up a little bit, but I guess you're asking about launches and the transfer case and.
Oh yeah, let's just say drivetrain.
Well, I don't know. Right, for the two drivetrains that I have, which would be the Evo Zone, I call them separate because, of course, they're slightly different, but the four-wheel drivetrains, of course, the launches are super easy. You know, you get into the rev, and then you dump the clutch.
Okay.
I feel like I can learn from what Ken said earlier, because my cars are in stock form. I don't know, I feel less concerned that I'm going to break something in that aspect. And the best way I can describe it is like limiter. A lot of people, have different things to say about limiter. But as the name suggests, it limits you. This is as high as the engine will rev. In stock form, the factory decided this. And I don't feel any way, getting to leave it or bouncing off it for a second or two. That's fine. Because I'm not running extra boost or, have specific mods, no injectors, nothing. So I'm okay with that. And for me, I can drive my cars at their limit in stock form. The moment you've adjusted things or modified things, you now have this big guessing game of figuring out where the limit is now. And that's a big concern. But I've launched the Evo. I've launched the Celica obviously many more times than the Evo. But I've launched the Evo at least twice or so. And I guess the way you do it as well, you do have to slip the clutch a bit. So I'm not just dumping completely, but it also has boost anyway. So yeah,
that's what I was about to say.
I wouldn't
He's like, the clutch helps.
That would be crazy. That would be madness. But I don't know how adding maybe slip to the mix would make a difference, because of course now you have this resistance from the tires, obviously. So adding slick, more traction, would that put the drivetrain under more stress? Definitely. But would it put it up under enough stress to damage something? I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know.
Don't chance it. I can tell you that much. Don't chance it.
Yeah, I wouldn't chance it. But I know with the Celica, because it's more of my race car, if you want to call it that. They're not the same cars. So my Evo is more like the daily. The Celica is more like the race car, which is why I'm not particularly. I don't treat it special. It doesn't get washed too often. I want it to be kind of muddy and go with the whole rally look. So with that car, it has a stage 2 clutch on it, $6, and I have launched that car many a time. In fact, there was once I was trying to film it spinning to get some wheel spin. So I had to launch it maybe about 7 to 10 times to get the right consecutively. Yeah? And never failed. Never failed.
Okay. So we can clearly say the Celica GT4 in launch is more reliable than the Evo.
I was about to ask you that. Would you say it's like the drivetrain of the Celica is stronger for the same type of abuse you put it through in stock form then?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. If so, that's really interesting.
And not just that, I mean, even in upon forums, I don't know of someone, nuking their transfer case in a Celica.
Right.
I don't.
But we know Toyota over engineers everything unique.
Most things. Yeah, exactly.
So,
Toyota, they say Toyota is that benefit.
no, they
we
over-engineer everything. The size
we
of
the
their
same way
brakes,
too.
their hair,
We
everything.
the same way too. I think our gearbox could take at least 300 or 400 horsepower.
There you
Wow.
go.
So the diff also too could take 300-400 horsepower. You most likely will probably break an arc, you probably break a CV or axle first before you break the diff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, with the Mazdas, we can take up to 400 horsepower on the full brake.
Mm.
And then the full
I think this guy likes to take about 1,000 horsepower.
You can take a good bit, that's for sure. It can definitely take.
They're gonna take, boy.
Yeah. No, but I mean, on the subject of launches, Kun, you've done a few races, so do you think that launching a rear-wheel drive is a thing in a drag race, or should you just, slip off the line and get your power as you go down? Does it add to, or I guess, lessen your time? I'm saying add to, but does it give you an advantage?
The thing with
your experience?
with drag, we know the important thing is that 60-foot time. That matters a lot. So that short space there, that 0 to your 60-foot is really important. And that's where most times the all-wheel drive guys shine. Track prep is important, but for me, I've never had to do drag races with any of that. I've never had track prep. I've never had to launch on track bike. I didn't have slicks, drag radials, anything. So launching a rear-wheel drive car on the base, we'll just use rear wheel like you said, on the base. You have to find, it's a trial and error, obviously. You have to find that sweet spot to launch from. Now, like you rightfully said, dumping the clutch, regardless, is wheel spin. That's time loss. That 0 to 60-foot time will be horrible. So you have to find where you can launch the car that the power won't drop off and it won't bog, but at the same time, you're not going to spin tires, have to come off the gas, then come back on to try to make up time. So seat time and practice is the only way you can just find that. Because even if you have a rear-wheel drive car and you have launch control, and okay, you put your foot on the limiter, it builds boost, it stalls it at 5,000, and you dump the clutch. You will still get wheel spin, you will still have to fight for traction, and if you're on an unprepped track. So you have to know all of these things. That's why I tell people variables come into play for every aspect of driving, racing, all of these things. It's not just, my car makes power up here, send the limiter up here, dump the clutch. No. Like you said, Cody, you have to slip the clutch here and there to get that nice little roll and then gradually just run into the power.
Have you ever compared
that's why the gear comes different?
Like do two runs and then did you get a better time?
Pardon, say that again?
Have you ever did 2 runs and then you got a better time from launching vis-a-vis not launching?
There was an instance back in 2015, and I was at a drag event, and I wasn't going to do anything. I came down just to watch, and JD and the guys would tell me, just go and time the car. So the first time I went, wheel spin like joke, like you said. And then I realized, okay, let's dial it down a little. Came back one time, went back into the same lane, launched it a little less aggressive, and I dropped like 0.2 or 0.3 seconds in the run. So yeah, that one time I realized, don't send it all here. You'll get a lot of wheel spin. Try here. And then that try helped.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'd probably win this. I don't foresee, again, front wheel drives are pretty good at drag as well, but I don't foresee either of you. Those four-wheel drive cars come off the line quick. Like I said, I was trying to make mine slip, and even that was a challenge. And I was literally wetting the 4 tires to do it, and it just works so well once it figures out where the traction needs to go. That's it.
Once it's dry, it'll just bite and shoot.
Yeah, wow. It's just gonna go.
Okay.
So there's a lot less network. I hardly can, overshoot it or over rev or the most I can do is under rev and like you say, make it pop. But once you have enough, let's get up and go.
So in terms of the modifications you can do to each drivetrain for you guys, to not just to make it faster or more power or anything, but to improve for what you guys actually own. What steps can enthusiasts take? Enthusiasts can take to improve their drivetrain.
Stronger axles, I think, for all of us for sure.
Yeah.
Strong.
LSD,
Because
if you don't have LSD, right, you can start with a
Right.
basic LSD. I think we have a viscous, and they have a halogenic or something. So that what I have. And then you can go plated diff, where you have little clutches inside of it,
Okay.
right? Yeah, and I think that's that. Tires.
Yeah, I was about to say tires. For me, the modification here is tires. Tires and clutch.
Yes.
That's what I would say, tires and clutch.
Yeah.
If
Learn to
you have
shift.
a sports car and you intend
Learn to shift, because I see Dirty say
that
power
is
shift, and some guys don't like to try it, but
Yeah,
you can strip, break, do all kind of things to foot gear and these gears in these Nissan gearboxes. So even when you're making power and you just figure you can bang through the gears, sometimes you can't. You have to nicely put things into place because you put in a lot of load and shock onto these parts. So stronger gears. That's when I say stronger gears, stronger axles. If you know you're going to be abusing the car, adding a lot of power and doing things, you definitely have to do these things. Like definitely.
Yeah,
And in a
even
high grip situations, definitely.
even for our 1800s, especially I heard about the GSRs, SIRGs that keep on banging the gears. Eventually, the oil pump takes a dump.
Wow.
Right, because the high revving and the sudden banging, dropping the transition in the gears. Eventually, the oil pump tends to take a dump at 150,000 K. So yeah, even that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But I don't know. It may not be a mod, but just another piece of advice. I've been in situations where I was doing something and literally just broke something, not from maybe specific driving, but something broke. So it would be a good idea to have spares. The truth is, I have a ST205 and I actually have a ST202 in complete form for everything else that I need from it. And then I have spare that are specific to the ST205 as well. So I have spare, tension arms and very
I'm too lucky.
Yeah. No, well, you have to be smart when you're going into this. You definitely have to plan and go into it the right way.
Yeah, man.
Because like we said, things are getting more scarce. As much as your drivetrain may work right now, like you rightly said, where you may have to reshim something, that in itself is a mod. That in itself is bringing it back to its original, calibration. I like to use that word calibration because sometimes you don't even understand what the stock or the original calibration should be, and we're already modifying things. So for me, I have to use my buddy Ryan code here, stay within spec. Ryan, yeah, stay within
Big up RSP.
for me. Yeah, get to the spec first, and then you change things up. But I think if we all got to drive our cars, let's say like brand new off the showroom floor, just imagine what that experience would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe you may not have to get billet everything, but just start with the basic stuff. Put the gearbox down, even though it has no issue. Change all the synchros, change all the bearings, because you already know that it's a little notchy or
Exactly.
and that
Desmond said it. Once you buy a used sports car, you roll in the dice. You don't know the way into getting things.
You rolling the dice. Wow. Yep.
Once you buy another man project, you have to prepare to spend the money to go over everything.
Definitely.
You don't know what he's been through. You don't even get it belly dig out everything. So
that's the thing. I feel like living for that experience right now, but that's one other topic.
By all means.
That's one other topic. But yeah, so boy, I decided my military just 616. So it's like so we just start. Okay, so now look it. The road, the Lucian roads. Bacatel. It's starting with Bacatel. I think that is the road where they say if you can drive, they use a man. I think I think it's Bakatel Road I'm talking about, right, Kun? If
As in
I'm not
like
mistaken.
Master side, they're going up to Twapito and up there.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, that's
Up
the road.
there. Yes, yes. So
Yeah,
they
because
say
that
if
road is
for those that are in Cash Street and live in Cash Street, up north people will know. For those that live in South, when we talk, you all will understand. We'll explain to you all where that is. So there's a saying that my close partners and my best man say me, that's why Gideon, if you can't drive there, brother man, you're not a man. You don't know how to drive there.
well,
You can't.
Bagatelle, Monday door.
Yeah,
They
real
have a
bad.
lot of there are a lot of little roads, and boy, yeah,
Yeah.
you see,
For the drive now, railway drive. So tell
right?
us. Yeah.
They have certain places
Uh-huh.
you because look at where we live, right? The Americans don't know about them kind of things like us. These steep hills
Yeah,
that
man.
you have to quite come to a stop on, balance, and then move off, and all them kind of things. Wet road, trying to stop somewhere, Bagatelle, and try to move off from a little tight. You fit between two cars to allow a car to come down the hill, and then you want to
Yeah.
come out on the road wet and it raining, and you see him. Well, I have to really take my time with the throttle here, or else the back will probably just slide into the person you're trying to move away from, and it's I wouldn't even say it's a challenge that much. After a while, you that becomes second nature, that you know what to do, how to do, but
Uh-huh.
we have to deal with these things. David, front wheel drive, will have to take his time and come out because his front wheels turning and pulling him. So he have to really worry about when he turns and losing traction and car sliding when it's wet, coming up a steep hill after you pull your handbrakes and try to move off. There's a lot of dynamics going on with doing that.
Okay. Sorry to cut you short. Curry said that
Yeah.
his phone died.
Could
Well,
like,
Curry, that's
yeah.
fine. Somebody else. That's fine. But Curry, thanks for coming on the live today, bro. You've done a great job, man. All the best on the projects, man.
I now have to tell Curry, I like the vibe. You have two all-wheel drive sports cars like me, both of them white.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
And the funny thing, both of them named Stanley K boy. What happened to his brothers, my G?
and we live and grow up the same place, eh? Like we're a few houses away from each other.
Wow. Okay, well, Curry say you can respond in chat. Okay, somebody wanted to hop on the live, then let me accept the live, eh? Although the person not this person that can when you see that person you go know. Well, I won't say any person name. You'll be happy he's on the live.